Welcome back. So we're still reading from the Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman. I had read a little bit, uh, about 5 pages in. Um, yeah, so we're gonna continue reading, starting on page 6. From page 6 this is where we're starting. Self-education is, I firmly believe, the only kind of education there is. That's by Isaac Asimov. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Former president, pres, former professor of biochemistry at Boston University and author of more than 500 books. So this section describes the history of the Personal MBA as a project. You may find this context useful, but the primary value of this book is independent of my personal background. If you'd like to get to the business concepts, feel free to skip ahead to page 32. All right. So, people often ask Josh Kaufman if I have an MBA. No, I reply, but I did go to business school. As a student of the as a student at the University of Cincinnati, I was fortunate enough to participate in the Carl H. Lindner Honors Plus program, which resembles an MBA at the undergraduate level. The program was funded via scholarships. As a result, I had the remarkable opportunity to experience most of what business schools teach without the crippling burden of debt. I've also been on the fast track to corporate success, though the University of Cincinnati's cooperative education program, I landed a management position at a Fortune 500 company, Procter & Gamble. During my second year of college, by the time I graduated in 2005, I had an offer to become an assistant brand manager in P&G's home care division, a role reserved for graduates of top MBA programs. Of course, I'm yawning uncontrollably. As I began my last semester of college, I started focusing less on my coursework and more on my future. My new job would require a solid understanding of business, and almost all of my peers and managers would have MBAs from top-tier schools. I briefly considered enrolling in an MBA program. Oh man, wow. But it made no sense to pursue an expensive credential to get the kind of job I already had. And my responsibilities would be demanding enough without adding a load of coursework by enrolling in a part-time program. Wow. I just can't breathe, apparently. While my options, oh man, I can't read either. While considering my options, I remembered a bit of my career. Now I'm adding words. I remembered a bit of career advice that Andy Walter, the first associate director I reported to at Procter & Gamble, or P&G, had given me. If you put the same amount of time and energy you'd spend completing an MBA into doing good work and improving your skills, you'll do just as well. And he doesn't have an MBA. He studied electrical engineering in college. He retired as one of the company's top global IT executives responsible for leading many of P&G's largest projects. In the end, I decided to skip business school, but not business education. Instead of enrolling in an MBA program, I hit the books, creating my own personal MBA. Here's a quote that separates these paragraphs. A self-directed crash course in business. Many who are self-taught far excel the doctors, masters, and bachelors of the most renowned universities. This was by Ludwig von Mises, uh, Austrian economist and author of Human Action. I have Josh Kaufman. This guy. There he is. I've always been an avid reader, but before I decided to learn anything I could about business, most of what I read was fiction. I grew up in New London, small farm town. Why am I getting weather updates? I grew up in New London, a small farm town in northern Ohio, where the major industries are agricultural and light manufacturing. Wow, reading out loud really takes my breath away. So, Josh's mother worked as a librarian, and his father was a sixth grade science teacher, then an elementary school principal. Books were a major part of his life, but business was not. Before getting his first real job, he knew next to nothing about what businesses were, other than, or how they functioned, other than that they were places people went every day in order to draw a paycheck. I had no idea that people went every day in order to draw. No, that's not the right sentence. I had no idea that people. Whew, okay. I had no idea that companies like Procter and Gamble existed until I applied for the job that swept me into the corporate world. There he is. Working for P&G was an education in itself. The size and scope of the business and the complexity of managing a business that size boggled his mind. During his first 3 years with the company, why can I not read today? During his first 3 years with the company, he participated in making decisions across every part of the business process, creating new products, ramping up production, allocating millions of marketing dollars, and securing distribution with major retailers like Walmart, Target, Kroger, and Costco. As an assistant brand manager, he was leading teams of 30 to 40 P&G employees, contractors, and agency staff, all of whom had competing projects, plans, and priorities. The stakes were huge, and the pressure was intense. To this day, I can't help but marvel at the thousands of man hours, the millions of dollars, and the complex processes necessary to make a simple bottle of dish soap appear on the shelf of the local supermarket. Everything from the shape of the bottle to the scent of the product is optimized, including the text on the cardboard boxes used to ship inventory to the store. My work at P&G, however, wasn't the only thing on my mind. My decision to skip business school in favor of educating myself developed from a side project into a minor obsession. Obsession. Every day I would spend hours, hour after hour, reading and researching, searching for one more tidbit of knowledge that would help me to better understand how the business world worked. Instead of using the summer after graduation to relax and go on vacation, I spent my days haunting the business stacks at the local bookstore, absorbing as much as I could. By the time I officially started working full time for P&G in September 2005, he had read books spanning every discipline that business schools teach, as well as disciplines that most business schools don't cover in detail, such as psychology, physical science, and systems theory. When my first day at P&G finally arrived, I felt prepared. As it turned out, my self education served me well. I was doing valuable work, making things happen, and getting good annual reviews. As time went on, however, I realized three important things. Apparently, when I read out loud, I can't breathe enough because it's getting ridiculous. One, large companies move slowly. Good ideas often died on the vine because they had to be approved by too many people. Two, climbing the corporate ladder is an obstacle to doing great work. I wanted to focus on getting things done and making things better, not drafting memos, sitting in meetings, positioning myself for promotion. Politics and turf wars are an inescapable part of the daily experience of working for a large company. Three. Frustration leads to burnout. I wanted to enjoy my daily experience of work, but instead I felt like I was running a gauntlet each day. It began to affect my health, happiness, and relationships. The longer I stayed in the corporate world, the more I realized I wanted out. I wanted to decide what to work on, who to work with, and what to prioritize, making entrepreneurship the best path for me long term. All right, I got the sniffles too. I swear. All right. So there's another quote. It's called "The Wheel and the Chaff," or Chaff, Chaff. Anywho, it reads like this: It is important that students bring a certain ragamuffin, barefoot, reverence to their studies. They are not here to worship what is known, but to question it. That was by Jacob Brana, Branaus, Branowski, Bronowski, writer and presenter of The Ascent of Man. All right. If there's one thing Josh Kaufman is good at, it's taking an enormous amount of information and distilling it into the essentials. Even so, sifting through the massive amount of business information available was a huge challenge. Thousands of new business books are published every year, and business periodicals, journals, and websites publish new research daily. Some of this information is useful, but most of it is not. My early business research was haphazard. I went to a bookstore and picked up any book that looked interesting. For every great book I found, I had to wade through 10 times as many low quality texts written by authors who were more interested in creating a 300-page business card than providing useful information. I started to wonder how much of what's out there, and there's a lot out there, I really needed to know. How could I separate the valuable information from the rubbish? I only had so much time and energy, so I started searching for a filter. Something that would direct me to the useful knowledge and keep me away from the chaff. There's no E at the end, so I'm thinking it's chaff. The more I searched, the more I realized it didn't exist. So I decided to create it myself. So Josh Kaufman writes his own book. I began tracking what resources were valuable and which ones weren't. Then, publishing my findings on my website, both as an archive and for the benefit of anyone interested. It was a personal project, nothing more. I was just a recent college graduate doing my best to learn something useful. And publishing my research for others seemed like a good use of time and energy. One faithful morning, however, the Personal MBA, what we're reading now, went public and became much more than a personal project. All right, let's see here. Of course, it separates with a quote. So it says, "The Personal MBA goes global. Whoever best describes the problem is the one most likely to solve it. That was by Dan Rome, author of The Back of the Napkin. All right, Back of the Napkin. All right. In addition to reading books, I was following several hundred business blogs. Some of the best business thinking was being published on the internet months or years before it ever appeared in print, and I wanted to read it all as soon as it was available. All right. One of the bloggers I followed was Seth Godin, a best-selling author of books like Permission Marketing, Purple Cow, and Linchpin. And one of the earliest successful online marketers, Seth specialized in bold statements and big ideas designed to challenge you to do more, do better, question the status quo, and make a difference. One particular morning, Seth was commenting on a recent news story. Harvard was rescinding the admission of 119 previously soon to be Harvard MBA students. Those prospective students had discovered a way to hack into the Harvard admissions website to view their application status before the official acceptance letters went out. The story became a media frenzy, devolving into a debate about whether MBA students were predisposed to lie, cheat, or steal, or if business schools made them that way. Instead of being outraged at the bad behavior of the applicants, Seth had a very different perspective. Harvard was giving these students a gift. By rescinding their admission, the university was returning 150 grand and 2 years of their lives that would otherwise have been spent chasing a piece of paper. It's hard for me to understand, he wrote, why, these are in quotes, why getting an MBA is a better use of time and money than actual experience combined with a dedicated reading of 30 to 40 books. I experienced a moment of unexpected validation, then got to work. Over the next 2 days, I created a list of the books and resources I had found most valuable in my studies, then published it on my website with a link to Seth's post so anyone interested in figuring out how to do what Seth suggested would be able to find it. When it was done, I sent Seth an email with a note of thanks and a link to my post. 2 minutes later, a post went up on Seth's blog directing people to my reading list, and a flood of readers from around the world began visiting my website. Popular personal development and productivity blogs and sites like Lifehacker picked up the story, which then spread to social media websites and a wide variety of personal blogs. In the first week of the Personal MBA's existence, 30,000 people visited his little corner of the internet to see what he was doing. Better yet, they started talking. Some readers asked questions. Where should they start? Others suggested a great book or great books they'd read, helping me with my research. A few told me the entire project was naive and that I was wasting my time. Through it all, I kept reading, researching, and developing the Personal MBA in my spare time. And the business self-education movement began to snowball. In a very short time, the Personal MBA grew from a one-man side project into a global phenomenon. The site, personalmba.com, had been or has been visited by millions of readers since it went live in early 2005. And the project has been featured by the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg Business Week, the Financial Times, Time magazine, or Time, Fortune, Fast Company, and hundreds of other major news organizations and independent websites. In late 2008, I left P&G to focus on research writing and improving the Personal MBA full time. Oh, excuse me. I guess that'd be dinner. As much as I enjoyed the interest in my reading list, I soon realized that providing a reading list wasn't enough. People read business books to solve specific challenges and to improve themselves in some tangible way. They're looking for solutions, and a list of books, while valuable, could only do so much. The books themselves aren't as important as the ideas and knowledge they contain. But many of my readers were missing out because it took hours of turning pages to get to the good stuff. Many readers started with enthusiasm, only to quit after reading a few books. It took too long to reap the rewards, and the demands of work and family prevented many readers from completing the project. To help them, Josh Kaufman had more work to do. So there's another quote here. Uh, Munger's, probably like Charlie Munger. Let's see. His quote says, Munger's mental models. I think it's undeniably true that the human brain works in models. The trick is to have your brain work better than the other person's brain because it understands the most fundamental models, the ones that do the most work. Charles T. Munger, billionaire, business partner of Warren Buffett, former CEO of Wesco Financial, and vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. Let's see what else he has in store for us. My first glimpse into the future of the Personal MBA came when I discovered the work of Charlie Munger. Charlie was born in Omaha, Nebraska, just before the Great Depression. As a young man, Charlie skipped high school athletics in favor of reading to satisfy his intense curiosity about how the world worked. His early business experience consisted of working in a family-owned grocery store for $2 a day. 1941, Charlie graduated from high school. After 2 years of studying graduate mathematics and physics at the University of Michigan, he enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Corps, otherwise known as Air Force nowadays, where he was trained as a meteorologist. In 1946, after leaving the Army, he was accepted to Harvard Law School. Even though he had never earned a bachelor's degree, which wasn't required at the time. Charlie graduated from Harvard Law in 1948 and spent the next 17 years practicing as an attorney. In 1965, he left the law firm he had created to start an investment partnership, which went on to outperform the market by basically 20%, 19.8%, compounded annually over 14 years, an astounding record given his complete lack of formal business education. Charlie Munger isn't a household name, but most people have heard of Warren Buffett, Charlie's business partner. Munger joined Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway, a floundering textile manufacturer turned investment holding company in 1978. Together, Buffett and Munger became billionaires. According to Buffett, Charlie's mental model centric approach to business is a major contributing factor in the success of Berkshire Hathaway and Buffett's status as one of the world's wealthiest business owners. In Buffett's words, Charlie can analyze and evaluate any kind of deal faster and more accurately than any man alive. And I'm going to stop right there because I don't want this video to keep going forever. And we'll pick up in the next video on page 13. That's all I have so far. Thanks for watching, listening, learning. Have a good night.